Here we go. Equipment and utensils, including linens. Section C, Utah Food Handlers. Welcome, SafeFoodTest.com. Let's do this. As a food handler, it's important you know the difference between cleaning and sanitizing. Cleaning is the processes of removing food and other dirt from the surface, while sanitizing is reducing the number of pathogens on the surface to a safe level. Food contact surfaces must be washed, rinsed, and sanitized. All surfaces must be cleaned and rinsed, including walls, storage shelves, and garbage containers. However, any surface that touches food, such as knives and stock pots and cutting boards and prep tables, must be cleaned and sanitized. So how do we do that? Scrape or remove the food bits from the surface. Use the correct cleaning tools, such as a nylon brush or a pad or cloth towel. Wash the surface. Prepare the cleaning solution with an approved detergent. Wash the surface with the correct cleaning tool, such as a cloth towel. Rinse the surface. Using clean water, rinse the surface with the correct cleaning tool, such as a cloth towel. Sanitize the surface. Use the correct sanitizing solution. Prepare the concentration per manufacturer's requirements. Use the correct tool, such as a clean cloth, to sanitize the surface. Make sure the entire surface has come in contact with the sanitizing solution and allow the surface to air dry. So make sure you clean your food contact surfaces after they are used, before working with a different food, anytime that the task or the job has been interrupted and surfaces may have been contaminated, or in a scenario where you've been at work for 4 hours in the same task. You need to stop, clean up before resuming to going back to work. So remember, food contact surfaces must be sanitized, and there's several ways you can do that. One is using heat or other chemicals. So when you're using heat, you can immerse the item in 171 degree water, hold it there for 30 seconds. You can also use a high temperature dishwashing machine to accomplish this, and or chemicals to do this. So chemicals are going to be mixed at appropriate concentrations. We measure those in what we call parts per million, or ppm. So chlorine is generally going to be mixed between 50 and 90 parts per million. You're going to make sure you have your iodine at 12.5 to 25 and your quartz at 200 to 400 parts per million. Now, chemical sanitizers are regulated by state and federal protection agencies, EPAs. For the requirements, make sure you check your local regulatory authority on any chemicals you're considering using. Chemical sanitizing requires that the item is either soaked in the solution or it's rinsed, swabbed, or sprayed on the surface and then allowed to air dry. Several factors influence the effectiveness of chemical sanitizers. The most critical include concentration, temperature, contact time, water hardness, and pH. Sanitizer solution is a mix of chemical sanitizer and water. The concentration of this mix, the amount of sanitizer to water, is critical. Too much water makes the solution weak and useless, and too much sanitizer can make the solution too strong and unsafe. It can also lead to bad taste on items or corrode metal. Be sure to use a test kit to test the concentration. Test kits ensure that your sanitizer solution is at the proper concentration. You should use test kits often to ensure you have the proper concentration. Change the solution if it's dirty, or change it if the concentration is too low or perhaps too high. You want to make sure your 3-compartment sink is properly set up for when you're washing dishes. So you do have 3 sinks. You got the wash sink, the rinse sink, and the sanitize sink. Clean and sanitize each sink and the drain boards before you start. Fill the first sink with detergent and water at least 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Fill the second sink with clean water, and then fill the third sink with water and sanitizer to the correct concentration, or hot water if you're using that. Remember, 271 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure you have a clock handy so that you can track the time for immersion or for sanitizing, right? So there's 5 steps to proper dishwashing. First you gotta rinse and scrape, then you gotta wash, then you gotta rinse again, then you gotta sanitize, and then air dry. So you're gonna wanna make sure you do this the right way. Again, start off by scraping all the food bits off, all the food globules. Then go ahead and rinse it real well too. Then dip it in the wash water, scrub it up real good, get all the rest of the food particles off and grease and whatnot. Then put it in the rinse water at that time. After you rinse it, you're going to go ahead and sanitize it, either in hot water or in a sanitizing solution with the proper concentration. And then you're going to put it on the drain board and let it air dry. There are different types of dishwashing machines, and they sanitize a little different. Some use hot water and some use chemicals. High temperature machines use hot water to clean and sanitize. If the water's not hot enough though, items will not be properly sanitized. Extremely hot water can also bake food onto the items, so you want to still make sure that they're properly scraped before you put them in the dishwashing machine. The dishwasher must have built-in thermometer to check the water temperature at the manifold. This is where the water sprays into the tank. Chemical sanitizing machines can clean and sanitize items at much lower temperatures because sanitizers require different water temperatures. Make sure you follow the manufacturer's instructions on the dishwasher. It's important that you clean the machine as often as possible, checking at least once a day. Clear the spray nozzles of food and foreign objects. Remove mineral deposits when needed. Fill tanks with clean water and make sure the detergent and sanitizer dispensers are filled. Make sure you're pre-soaking items with dried on food. Load dish racks so water spray will reach all surfaces. Never overload dish racks. Never use a towel to dry items. You could recontaminate them. Make sure it's operating at the proper water temperature, pressure, and your sanitizing levels are appropriate. Take corrective action if necessary, using a heat tape or test strips to monitor the temperature and or sanitizing wrench as necessary. We've gone to all the trouble to properly clean things. Let's make sure we store them properly too. So keep all your storage areas clean and dry. Clean the floors, the walls, and shelving in the coolers, freezers, dry storage areas, and hot holding areas on a regular basis. Clean up spills and leaks properly, keeping them from contaminating other food. Store dirty linens away from food. When storing clean and sanitized tableware and equipment, it must be at least 6 inches off the floor. On clean and sanitized drawers and shelves. Make sure you store glasses and cups upside down on a clean and sanitized shelf or rack. When storing clean and sanitized tableware and equipment, store flatware and utensils with handles up. Cover the food contact surface of stationary equipment until ready to use. Clean and sanitize trays and carts used to carry clean tableware and utensils. Alright, if you are using a high temperature dishwashing machine, you're going to want to make sure that the temperature inside the machine is appropriate. So there's a couple tools we use for that. One is called a maximum registering thermometer or temperature sensitive tape. We can you actually run these through the dishwasher. It gets the temperature for us. We can verify that we're at the right temperature. If you're not sure how to use these, or if you don't know if you have these, make sure you check with your manager. So storage is important. We must prevent cross-contamination during storage. We got to store all items away from the wall and at least 6 inches off the floor. Make sure that we store, of course, single-use items in the sleeves to protect them or in their original packaging, of course. Other ways to make sure you're preventing cross-contamination in storage areas is to make sure those areas are properly cleaned. As a food handler, that's going to be your job, to make sure the area is clean and dry, including the floors, walls, the shelving, in the cooler, in the freezer, in the dry storage area. Make sure the hot holding units are properly cleaned on a regular basis. If you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Make sure you clean up spills and leaks promptly. And to make sure by doing that you'll prevent contamination. And make sure that you store dirty linen away from food. Store dirty linen in a clean, non-absorbent container or a laundry bag. Make sure you're only using chemicals that are approved for food service. Make sure you store them in their original container away from food and prep areas. If you do transfer to a new container, make sure to label with the common name on the container. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration has requirements on using chemicals. OSHA requires chemical manufacturers and suppliers to provide material safety data sheets, or SDSs, for the chemicals they sell. SDSs are supposed to be on file or come with the chemicals when you receive them. You can request them from the supplier or manufacturer. The manager should make sure they're available within your facility. If you have questions or concern about proper use and handling of the chemicals, refer to the SDS. I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, but garbage can attract pests and contaminate food equipment and utensils if not handled correctly. Food handlers must be careful when removing garbage so they do not contaminate food or food contact surfaces. The food handler in the photo is not handling garbage in the appropriate manner. Make sure to clean inside and outside of garbage containers frequently. It's a rough job, but it's got to be done. This will help prevent contamination of food and food contact surfaces. This will also reduce odors and pests. Do not clean garbage containers near food prep areas or in food preps or food storage areas. Hopefully you have an area outside where it's safe to do that. Make sure the garbage containers are covered when not in use. Make sure that waste and recyclables are stored separately from food and food contact surfaces. The storage of these items must not create a nuisance or a public health hazard. Outdoor containers must have tight-fitting lids, be placed on smooth, durable, non-absorbent surfaces, be covered at all times, and have their drain plugs in place. Good job. You completed Equipment, Utensils, and Linens, Section C, SafeFoodTest.com. Utah Food Handlers, make sure you complete the 4-question pre-exam assessment before moving to the next section.